Ethan Cole had learned to be invisible. It was not a skill he was born with, but one he had built over 3 years of working on Valith 7. The diplomatic station floated in neutral space, a place where empires met to talk instead of fight. Important people walked its corridors every day. Ambassadors, generals, princes, and presidents. They never noticed the man who fixed their air filters and repaired their broken doors. That was fine with Ethan. He liked his quiet life. He woke up, ate breakfast alone, fixed whatever needed fixing, and spent his evenings in the observation lounge watching the stars. Earth was somewhere out there, millions of miles away. He had not been home in 4 years. Today was different. Today, the station was buzzing with nervous energy. Ethan could feel it in the way people walked faster, talked softer, and looked over their shoulders. The Vathri were coming. He had heard stories about the Vathri Empire. Everyone had. They were one of the oldest civilizations in the galaxy. Their technology was centuries ahead of humanity. Their ships could cross the stars in days instead of weeks. But what made people truly afraid was something else entirely. The Vathri were telepaths. Ethan was replacing a light panel in Corridor 7 when the delegation arrived. He pressed himself against the wall as they passed. The Vathri were tall and slender, with pale blue skin and large dark eyes that seemed to look right through everything. They wore robes of silver and white that flowed like water. Guards in black armor walked beside them, their faces hidden behind smooth helmets. And in the center of them all walked a young woman. She was smaller than the others. Her skin was a lighter shade of blue, almost white. Her hair was long and silver, falling past her shoulders like starlight. She wore a simple dress instead of royal robes, and she kept her eyes fixed on the floor as she walked. Ethan heard 2 diplomats whispering nearby. "That's the princess, Salara." I heard she drove a Corvette ambassador insane just by looking at him. "Stay away from her. Far away. The humans have been warned specifically." Ethan watched her pass. For just a moment, she lifted her eyes and looked in his direction. He felt a strange chill run down his spine. Then she was gone, swept away by her guards and handlers. Later that day, Lieutenant Katie Morgan called him into her office. She was a good boss, tough but fair, and she always looked out for her team. Today, she looked worried. "Cole, I need you to listen carefully," she said. "The Vathri princess is dangerous. Her telepathic abilities are stronger than anyone we've ever encountered. Other species have had incidents, mental breakdowns, complete psychological collapse. Just from being near her?" Ethan asked. "Just from being near her," Katie confirmed. "The Vathri have agreed to keep her isolated during the negotiations. But if you see her anywhere, you walk the other way. Don't talk to her. Don't look at her. Don't even think too loudly around her." Ethan almost laughed at that last part, but Katie's expression stopped him. "This is serious, Ethan. The trade treaty we're signing is worth billions. It could change humanity's place in the galaxy. We can't let anything go wrong." "I understand," Ethan said. "I'll stay invisible. It's what I do best." That night, Ethan went to the observation lounge like he always did. It was his favorite place on the station. A large window curved along one wall, showing an endless field of stars. Most people preferred the busy recreation areas, so this room was usually empty. Tonight was no different. He sat in his usual chair and let out a long breath. The stars always made him feel small, but in a good way. His problems seemed less important when he remembered how big the universe was. He thought about Earth, about his mother's house in Colorado, about the dog he had left behind. He wondered if she still remembered him. He was so lost in thought that he did not hear the door open. He did not hear the soft footsteps crossing the room. He only noticed when someone sat down in the chair beside him. Ethan turned his head. and felt his heart stop. Princess Saylara was sitting less than 3 feet away from him. She was looking out at the stars with a sad, tired expression on her face. Her silver hair caught the starlight and seemed to glow. Every warning he had received screamed in his mind, "Run, leave, get away from her before she destroys your mind." But his body would not move. He sat frozen, barely breathing, waiting for something terrible to happen. Nothing happened. The princess just sat there, quiet and still, watching the stars like he had been doing moments before. Minutes passed. Ethan's heart slowly returned to normal. He started to wonder if maybe the stories were exaggerated. She did not look dangerous. She looked lonely. Finally, she spoke. Her voice was soft and musical, like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "You are not running away." Ethan swallowed hard. "Should I be? Everyone else does." She turned to look at him. Her eyes were dark purple, deep as oceans. "They see me coming, and they flee. Even my own people keep their distance. But you just sat there." "I didn't notice you come in," Ethan admitted. "I was thinking about home." The princess tilted her head slightly, her brow furrowed in confusion. "That is strange," she said quietly. "I cannot hear you. Hear me? I haven't said anything until now. No, I mean..." She paused, searching for the right words. "I cannot hear your thoughts. Your mind is quiet, like static, like a river that moves too fast to follow." Ethan did not know what to say to that. He had never thought of his mind as anything special. The princess leaned slightly closer, studying him with intense curiosity. "Every other being in this station screams at me," she said. "Their fears, their desires, their secrets. It never stops. It has never stopped since the day I was born. But you..." She paused, and something like wonder crossed her face. "You are silent." She looked at him with those deep purple eyes, and Ethan saw something he did not expect. Hope. "Why aren't you afraid of me?" she asked. Ethan thought about the question. He thought about all the warnings, all the stories, all the reasons he should be terrified. Then he looked at the young woman sitting beside him, and he saw the truth that everyone else had missed. She was not a monster. She was just alone. "I don't know," he said honestly. "Maybe I should be. But right now, you just seem like someone who wanted to look at the stars." The princess stared at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, the smallest smile appeared on her face. "I am Saylara," she said. "Ethan," he replied. "Ethan Cole." And somewhere in the back of his mind, Ethan knew that his quiet, invisible life had just changed forever. Saylara did not leave for a long time. They sat together in the observation lounge, watching the stars spin slowly past the window. Ethan was not sure what to say, so he said nothing. The silence between them was comfortable, like sitting with an old friend. Finally, Saylara spoke again. "What is your world like? Earth?" Ethan smiled at the question. "It's beautiful. Blue oceans, green forests, mountains covered in snow. I grew up in a place called Colorado. Cold winters, warm summers. My mother still lives there. You miss her. Every day." Saylara nodded slowly. "I understand missing someone. My mother died when I was young, before I even learned to control my abilities." She paused. I felt her thoughts fade away. I felt the exact moment she left me. Ethan did not know what to say. The pain in her voice was so raw, so real. He wanted to offer comfort, but what words could possibly help? "I'm sorry," he said simply. "Most people say that," Saylara replied. "But when they say it, I can hear what they really think. Pity, fear, relief that it was not them." She turned to look at him. "But you..." "I cannot hear anything. It is strange, wonderful, terrifying." "Is that why you came over here?" Ethan asked. "Because you couldn't hear me?" "Partly," but also because you looked peaceful. Everyone on this station is so tense, so full of worry and ambition. Their minds are like storms. But you were just sitting here, thinking about home, and you seemed content. Ethan chuckled softly. I'm not important enough to be stressed. I just fix things. You fix things, Silara repeated. What kind of things? Anything that breaks. Lights, doors, water systems, air filters. Nothing exciting. It sounds peaceful. It is. Most days. Silara looked back at the stars. I have never known peace. Not once in my entire life. The voices are always there. Even when I sleep, I hear the dreams of everyone around me. Nightmares, desires, fears. It never stops. Ethan tried to imagine what that would be like. Hearing thousands of thoughts pressing against your mind every moment of every day. Never having a single quiet second. It sounded like torture. How do you live with it? He asked. I learned to build walls inside my mind. Barriers to keep the loudest thoughts out. But it takes constant effort. And some minds are louder than others. The Corvith, for example. Their thoughts are like screaming. I can barely be in the same room with them. And humans? Silara was quiet for a moment. Humans are different. Your thoughts are not organized like other species. They jump from one thing to another. Images, feelings, memories, all mixed together. Most of my people find it disturbing. They call human minds chaotic and primitive. That doesn't sound like a compliment. It is not meant to be, but I think they are wrong. Silara looked at him again. Your chaos is not weakness. It is freedom. Your thoughts move so fast that even I cannot catch them. Near you, the noise finally stops. For the first time in my life, I can just be. Ethan felt something warm bloom in his chest. He had spent years feeling ordinary, invisible, unimportant. But somehow, just by being himself, he had given this lonely princess something no one else could. I'm glad, he said. I'm glad you found some quiet. They talked for another hour. Ethan told her about his childhood, about his father who had been a pilot, about his dreams of seeing the galaxy. Silara told him about the Vithari homeworld, about the crystal cities that sang when the wind blew through them, about the gardens that grew flowers in every color imaginable. It was the most real conversation Ethan had ever had with anyone. But all good things end. The door to the observation lounge slammed open. A tall Vithari male in black armor strode in, his face twisted with fury. Behind him came two more guards. Princess, the leader shouted. You were told to remain in your quarters. Silara stood quickly. Commander Tyrus, and you. Tyrus turned his burning gaze on Ethan. Human, you dare sit beside the Imperial Princess? You dare speak to her? Ethan stood and raised his hands. I didn't mean any disrespect. She came to me. We were just talking. Just talking. Tyrus spat the words like poison. Do you have any idea who she is? What she is? You are nothing. A maintenance worker. Dirt beneath her feet. Tyrus, stop, Silara said firmly. He did nothing wrong. He breathes the same air as you. That is wrong enough. Tyrus grabbed Ethan by the arm and shoved him toward the door. Leave, now. And if I ever see you near the princess again, I will forget that we are supposed to be allies with your species. Ethan stumbled, but caught himself. He looked back at Silara. She had her hands clasped in front of her, her eyes filled with sadness. Go, she said softly. Please, I do not want you to get hurt because of me. Ethan wanted to argue. He wanted to stay. But the look in her eyes told him that fighting would only make things worse. So he nodded once and walked away. The next morning, Lieutenant Katie Morgan found him in the maintenance bay. Cole, my office. Now, He followed her in silence. She closed the door and turned on the privacy screen. "What were you thinking?" she demanded. The Vathri filed a formal complaint. "They're saying you tried to manipulate the princess. That you're some kind of spy. That's ridiculous. I was just sitting in the lounge. She came to me. It doesn't matter who came to who. You were warned, Ethan. Stay away from her." Those were direct orders. "She's not dangerous," Ethan said. "She's lonely. Everyone treats her like a monster, but she's just a person who wants someone to talk to." Katie sighed and rubbed her forehead. "I believe you. I do. But this is bigger than both of us." Ambassador Lane is furious. "The trade negotiations are at a critical point. We can't afford any complications. So what happens now?" "Now you keep your head down and pray this blows over." Katie looked at him with tired eyes. "I mean it, Ethan. Don't go near her again. For your own sake." Ethan nodded, but inside, something was breaking. He had finally found someone who saw him as more than invisible, and now he was being told to disappear again. That night, he did not go to the observation lounge. He stayed in his small quarters, staring at the ceiling, trying not to think about purple eyes and silver hair. A soft chime made him look at his terminal. A message had arrived. The sender was anonymous, but the text was in Vithari script. Ethan ran it through his translator. The words made his breath catch. "Thank you for seeing me." He read it again and again. Outside his window, the stars continued their endless dance. And somewhere on the station, a princess was thinking about him too. 3 days passed. Ethan tried to follow orders. He focused on his work, kept his head down, and avoided anywhere the Vasari delegation might be. It was not easy. The station was not that large, and the princess seemed to be everywhere. He would turn a corner and see her walking with her guards at the end of the hallway. He would enter the cafeteria and find her sitting alone at a table near the window. Each time, their eyes would meet for just a moment before he forced himself to look away and leave. It felt wrong. It felt like abandoning someone who needed help. On the 4th day, Ethan was repairing a broken water pipe in Section 12 when he heard footsteps behind him. He turned and found Saylara standing there, alone. "Princess," he said, looking around nervously. "Where are your guards?" "I told them I needed to use the facilities. They are waiting outside." She stepped closer. "You have been avoiding me. I was ordered to stay away. Your commander made it very clear. Tyrus is protective. He has been with my family since before I was born. He means well, but he does not understand." She looked at him with those deep purple eyes. "I do not want you to avoid me, Ethan. These past days have been difficult." The noise came back, louder than before. Ethan felt a pain in his chest. "I'm sorry. I didn't want to cause problems for you. The only problem is when you are not there." Saylara glanced at the door, then back at him. "Can we talk, please? Just for a moment?" He knew he should say no. He knew the smart thing was to send her away and protect his career, his life, everything he had built. But when he looked at her face, he could not do it. "Okay," he said, "but not here. Follow me." He led her through a maintenance corridor that most people did not know existed. They ended up in a small storage room filled with spare parts and old equipment. It was not beautiful, but it was private. Saylara looked around with curiosity. "This is where you work." "Sometimes. Mostly when I want to be alone." He sat on a crate and gestured for her to do the same. "We can talk here. No one will find us." She sat across from him, her silver hair catching the dim light. For a moment she said nothing. Then words began to pour out of her like water breaking through a dam. "Do you know what it is like to be feared your entire life? From the moment my powers showed themselves, everyone changed. My father stopped holding me. My siblings kept their distance. Servants would tremble when I entered a room. That's terrible, Ethan said softly. I learned to read minds before I learned to read books. I knew what everyone thought of me before I was old enough to understand the words. Monster, weapon, curse. Her voice broke slightly. I am the youngest daughter of an emperor, and I have never had a single friend. Not one, until you. Ethan reached out and took her hand. Her skin was cool to the touch, smooth like polished stone. She flinched at first, surprised by the contact, then slowly relaxed. I'm not special, he said. I'm just a guy who fixes broken things. I don't have any power or influence. I can't give you anything important. You give me silence, Selara whispered. You give me peace. Do you understand how precious that is? I would trade all the treasures of my empire for 1 hour of quiet. And you give it to me just by being near. They talked for a long time. Selara told him about her childhood, about the tutors who taught her to control her abilities, about the endless training to make her into a useful tool for the empire. Ethan told her about his father's death, about working multiple jobs to help his mother, about how he ended up in space because Earth held too many painful memories. They were both broken in their own ways. And somehow, that made them fit together. Over the next week, they met in secret whenever they could. A few minutes here, half an hour there. Ethan showed her the hidden parts of the station, the places where maintenance workers went and diplomats never looked. Selara showed him small Vathery customs, taught him simple words in her language, and laughed at his terrible pronunciation. He had never heard her laugh before. It was the most beautiful sound in the galaxy. But secrets never stay hidden forever. Ambassador. Derek Lane called Ethan into his office on the 8th day. The ambassador was a tall man with gray hair and cold eyes. He did not offer Ethan a seat. I know what you've been doing, Lane said flatly. Meeting with the princess in secret. Did you think no one would notice? Ambassador, I can explain. I don't want explanations. I want it to stop. Lane leaned forward. The trade treaty signing is in 3 days. This agreement will bring technology, resources, and opportunities to billions of humans. I will not let it fail because some maintenance worker can't follow simple orders. She's not dangerous, Ethan said. She's kind and smart and lonely. The stories about her are exaggerated. I don't care what she is. I care about what her father thinks. Emperor Valeth is watching everything we do. If he believes we're trying to manipulate his daughter, this whole deal falls apart. Lane's voice hardened. End it. Today. That's not a request. Ethan left the ambassador's office feeling sick. He knew Lane was right about the stakes. The treaty really was important. Millions of people were counting on it. But he also knew that walking away from Selara would hurt her. She had finally found someone who treated her like a person, and now he was supposed to disappear like everyone else. That evening, he went to their usual meeting spot with a heavy heart. Selara was already there, smiling when she saw him. Her smile faded when she saw his face. Something is wrong, she said. The ambassador found out. He ordered me to stop seeing you. Selara's expression did not change, but her eyes grew sad. I see. So this is goodbye. Ethan took a deep breath. He thought about his career, his future, everything he could lose. Then he thought about the young woman standing in front of him, waiting for another person to abandon her. No, he said firmly. It's not goodbye. I don't care what they ordered. You're my friend, and I won't leave you alone. Selara stared at him in shock. But the treaty, your position, some things are more important than treaties and positions. He stepped closer and took her hands in his. You're more important. For a moment, Selara did not move. Then tears began to fall from her purple eyes, leaving silver trails on her blue cheeks. "No one has ever chosen me before," she whispered. "No one has ever stayed." "Then everyone else was wrong," Ethan said. "Because you're worth staying for." She hugged him then, the first hug she had given anyone in years. And as Ethan held her, he knew he had made the right choice. But neither of them saw the message being sent from the station to the Vathari flagship. Neither of them knew that Emperor Valeth had just been informed of everything. And the Emperor wanted to meet the human who dared to befriend his daughter. The Vathari guards came for Ethan the next morning. They did not knock. They simply opened his door and told him to come with them. Ethan had enough sense not to argue with 4 armed soldiers. Lieutenant Morgan tried to stop them in the corridor. "Where are you taking him? He's a human citizen. You can't just, This is not your concern," Commander Tyrus said coldly. "The Emperor has requested his presence. That is all you need to know." Morgan looked at Ethan with fear in her eyes. "I'll contact the ambassador. We'll get you back." "Don't," Ethan said quietly. "It's okay. Whatever happens, it's my own fault." They took him to a shuttle and flew him to the Vathari flagship. The ship was massive, larger than the entire station. Its hull was made of something that looked like liquid silver, constantly shifting and flowing. Inside, everything was white and clean and beautiful, like walking through a palace made of light. The throne room was at the heart of the ship. It was a vast circular chamber with a ceiling so high it seemed to touch the stars. Columns of crystal lined the walls, humming with soft energy. And at the far end, on a throne carved from a single massive gemstone, sat Emperor Valeth. He was old. That was the first thing Ethan noticed. The Emperor's skin was pale blue, almost gray, and deep lines crossed his face like cracks in ancient stone. But his eyes were sharp and clear, burning with intelligence and power. Ethan was pushed to his knees before the throne. Guards stood on either side of him with weapons ready. For a long moment, the Emperor said nothing. He simply looked at Ethan, studying him like a scientist examining a strange new specimen. So, the Emperor finally spoke. His voice was deep and resonant, filling the entire chamber. "You are the human who has captured my daughter's attention." "Your Majesty," Ethan said, trying to keep his voice steady. "I meant no disrespect. I never intended." Silence. The word was not loud, but it carried absolute authority. Ethan closed his mouth. The Emperor rose from his throne and walked down the steps toward him. Up close, he was even more imposing. Tall, regal, radiating power like heat from a furnace. "I have ruled the Vathari Empire for 200 years, the Emperor said. "I have conquered worlds, destroyed fleets, and crushed enemies that would make your entire species weep with terror. I have seen more than you could possibly imagine." He stopped directly in front of Ethan and looked down at him. "And in all that time, I have never seen my daughter smile. Not once. Not until she met you." Ethan blinked, surprised by the direction the conversation was taking. "My wife died giving birth to Saylara," the Emperor continued. "The pain of that loss combined with the emergence of her powers. It changed her. From her first day of life, she has been drowning in the thoughts of others. She has felt every fear, every hatred, every dark secret of everyone around her. It broke something inside her." The Emperor's expression softened, just slightly. For a moment, he looked less like a conqueror and more like a tired father. "I tried to help her. I brought the greatest telepaths in the Empire to train her. I gave her everything she could want. But none of it mattered. She built walls around her heart to survive. And no one could get through." He knelt down so he was eye level with Ethan, this close. Ethan could see the weight of centuries in those ancient eyes. "Then you appeared. A human, a maintenance worker. Someone so far beneath her station that no one even bothered to warn you properly. And somehow, you did what armies of teachers and healers could not. I just talked to her, Ethan said quietly. That's all. That is not all. The Emperor shook his head. You treated her like a person. You saw past the fear and the legends and the power. And you saw my daughter. The real her. The one she hides from everyone, including herself. He stood and turned away, walking back toward his throne. Your species fascinates me, human. Your minds are chaotic, unpredictable, impossible to read clearly. Most of my people see this as evidence that you are primitive. But I wonder if perhaps it is the opposite. The Emperor sat back on his throne. Your chaos is your strength. It makes you adaptable, creative, surprising. And it makes you immune to my daughter's curse. Ethan gathered his courage. Your Majesty, what happens now? Am I being punished? That depends on your answer to one question. The Emperor leaned forward. What do you want from my daughter? It was such a simple question. But Ethan understood that his life depended on the answer. Nothing, he said honestly. I don't want anything from her. I didn't plan any of this. I was just sitting in a room looking at stars, and she sat down next to me. We started talking, and I realized she was lonely. That's all. I wanted to be her friend because she needed one. The Emperor studied him for a long moment. Ethan felt like those ancient eyes were peeling back every layer of his soul, examining everything he was. You speak the truth, the Emperor said finally. Your chaotic mind makes it difficult for me to read, but I can sense no deception in you. He gestured, and the guards stepped back from Ethan. Rise. Human. Ethan stood on shaking legs. My daughter has been alone her entire life. She has never known friendship, never known peace, never known joy. In just a few days with you, she has changed. She smiles. She laughs. She speaks of the future with hope instead of resignation. The Emperor's expression was unreadable. I do not fully understand humans. Your species is young and strange, and your chaotic nature makes me uneasy. But I cannot deny what you have done for my child. He raised his hand, and a servant stepped forward carrying a small silver box. I offer you a choice. Ethan Cole, you may return to your people and forget this ever happened. The treaty will proceed. Your career will continue. You will be safe. The Emperor opened the box, revealing a medallion made of crystal that glowed with inner light. Or you may accept this. The mark of an imperial companion. You would stay with my daughter as her official friend and cultural liaison. You would live among the Vathari, learn our ways, and help Selara navigate a galaxy that has always been cruel to her. Ethan stared at the medallion. You're offering me a job? To be her friend? I am offering you a purpose. The Emperor's voice was serious. It will not be easy. Many of my people will hate you for your closeness to the princess. You will face danger, prejudice, and challenges you cannot imagine. But you will not be alone. And neither will my daughter. Before Ethan could answer, alarms began to scream throughout the ship. Red lights flashed across the throne room. The Emperor shot to his feet as guards rushed in from every entrance. Your Majesty! A commander shouted. Unknown fleet dropping out of hyperspace. They're on attack approach. Identify them. Corvus Dominion, sir. 20 ships. They're heading straight for the station. The Emperor's face hardened into stone. They're targeting Selara. And in that moment, Ethan forgot about choices and treaties and his own safety. Only one thought filled his mind. He had to get back to her. The shuttle ride back to the station was the longest of Ethan's life. Through the small window, he could see the battle unfolding. Corvus ships, dark and angular like knives made of shadow, were swarming toward Valus 7. The station's defenses were firing back, but there were too many attackers. Why are they doing this? Ethan asked the pilot. The Corvus hate the Vathari, the pilot replied grimly. They've been enemies for centuries. Killing Princess Solara would destabilize the Empire and start a war that would benefit the Dominion. The shuttle shook as an explosion lit up the void nearby. They were running out of time when they finally docked. The station was in chaos. Alarms screamed. Smoke filled the corridors. People ran in every direction, some heading for escape pods. Others trying to reach defensive positions. Ethan pushed through the crowds, ignoring the shouts and the fear. He only had one thought in his mind: find Solara. He found her in the observation lounge. Of course, that was where she would be. It was where they had first met. She was standing by the window, watching the battle with wide, terrified eyes. Commander Tyrus lay on the ground nearby, unconscious and bleeding from a wound on his head. 2 other guards were dead. Solara. Ethan ran to her side. Ethan. She grabbed his arm. They came through the maintenance corridors. Tyrus held them off, but there are more coming. I can feel their minds. So much hatred. So much hunger for death. We have to move, now. But before they could take a step, the door burst open. 5 Corvus soldiers poured in, their weapons raised. They were massive creatures, covered in black scales, with red eyes that glowed with cruel intelligence. The leader pointed at Solara. There she is. Kill the human. Take the princess. Ethan did not think. He grabbed a plasma cutter from his belt, the same tool he used to repair metal panels, and stepped in front of Solara. You'll have to go through me first. The Corvus laughed. It was an ugly sound, like stones grinding together. A maintenance worker threatens us? This is what humans consider brave. Pathetic, maybe, but I'm not moving. The leader raised his weapon to fire. Ethan knew he was going to die, but at least he would die protecting someone he cared about. Solara screamed, not a scream of fear. A scream of power. Ethan felt something strange wash over him. A wave of energy that started from Solara and exploded outward. But it did not hurt him. If anything, it felt warm, like standing in sunlight. The Corvus were not so lucky. The soldiers dropped their weapons and grabbed their heads. They screamed in agony, their red eyes going wide with horror. One by one, they collapsed to the ground, their minds destroyed by an invisible force. Solara fell to her knees, gasping for breath. Ethan caught her before she hit the ground. What? What did you do? I used their own hatred against them, she whispered weakly. I took their emotions and turned them into a weapon. It is forbidden among my people. It causes too much damage. She looked at him with wonder. But you were in the blast too. It should have affected you. Why didn't it? Ethan shook his head. I don't know. I just felt warm. Your mind. Solara reached up and touched his face. Your chaotic, beautiful mind. It filtered my attack. It turned the weapon into warmth. Tears fell from her eyes. You saved me. Just by being yourself, you saved me. More Corvus were coming. Ethan could hear their heavy footsteps in the corridor. But before they arrived, a new sound filled the air. The roar of human engines through the observation window. Ethan saw them. Human warships, dozens of them, dropping out of hyperspace and immediately engaging the Corvus fleet. They had received a distress signal and responded faster than anyone expected. The human ships were smaller than the Corvus vessels, but they were fast and aggressive. They darted through the enemy formation, firing with precision that spoke of years of training. The Corvus fleet, caught off guard, began to fall apart. Within an hour, the battle was over. The surviving Corvus ships fled into hyperspace. The station was secured, and Ethan and Solara were still alive. The aftermath was complicated. Ambassador Lane was furious about the attack, but happy that the treaty could proceed. Commander Tyrus recovered from his wounds and apologized to Ethan for his earlier hostility. Lieutenant Morgan gave Ethan the biggest hug of his life and told him he was the bravest idiot she had ever known. But the most important moment came 3 days later. At the treaty signing ceremony, Emperor Valeth stood before the assembled delegates from a dozen species. Beside him stood his daughter, looking more confident than anyone had ever seen her. And beside her stood Ethan, wearing the crystal medallion of an Imperial companion. "Today we sign a new chapter in galactic history," the Emperor announced. "But before we do, I wish to honor someone special. A human named Ethan Cole saved my daughter's life. He stood against enemies who could have killed him with a single blow, armed with nothing but a tool used to cut metal. He did this not for glory or reward, but because he cared." The Emperor turned to look at Ethan directly. "The galaxy told him to fear my daughter. They called her a monster, a curse, a weapon. But he saw something else. He saw a lonely young woman who needed a friend. And he chose to be that friend, no matter the cost." The Emperor smiled, something so rare that gasps echoed through the chamber. "Humans are strange. Your minds are chaos, your lives are short, and your bodies are fragile. But your hearts are stronger than any armor. Today, I am proud to call humanity our allies. And I am proud to call Ethan Cole a friend of the Vathari Empire." Later that night, Ethan and Saylara sat together in the observation lounge, watching the stars like they had done on that first evening. So much had changed since then. Everything had changed. "What happens now?" Ethan asked. "Now we write a new story," Saylara said. She reached over and took his hand. Together. Ethan smiled. He thought about Colorado, about his mother, about all the years he had spent being invisible. Then he looked at the princess sitting beside him, the most powerful telepath in the galaxy, who found peace in his chaotic human mind. "They told me not to go near you," he said quietly. Saylara laughed. "And the sound was like music. I'm glad you didn't listen. I'm glad you sat down next to me." And together, they watched the stars, no longer alone, no longer afraid, no longer invisible. The galaxy was big and strange and full of danger. But as long as they had each other, they could face anything. That was the human way, and it was beautiful.